A homeless man named John is sitting quietly on a train. Suddenly, a group of mean kids, led by a boy named Anton, comes in. They bump into two other people on purpose. One of the people pulls out a gun to scare them, but Anton is not scared. The person with the gun walks away, hurt and scared. Anton sees John sitting with a bottle of alcohol and tries to steal it. But John grabs Anton's hand and holds it tightly. What Anton and his friends don't know is that John used to be a secret agent who knows how to fight. When John finally lets go, Anton feels angry. He makes fun of John, saying there isn't enough alcohol for the whole group. The boys think they can beat John, but they have no idea how tough he is. When they try to surround him, John quickly takes them down. He breaks their hands, kicks them in the legs, and hits their necks, making it hard for them to breathe. The police take all 5 boys to jail. At the police station, Officer Carter watches the video of the fight and laughs. She goes to talk to John, joking that he should have hit the boys harder. John stays quiet. Officer Carter is curious about who John really is. She offers him some water and carefully takes the cup he used to check his fingerprints. When they check, they find out John is wanted in 4 different countries for being in big trouble before. Before Carter can ask more questions, a mysterious lawyer comes and gets John out of jail. John walks free, and Carter is left wondering who he really is. After leaving the police station, the lawyer takes John to meet his employer, a rich man named Harold Finch. Harold seems to know everything about John's past, including that John is drinking himself to death. Harold tells John that what he needs is a purpose, a reason to live and work. He offers John a job. Harold takes John to the busy streets of New York City. He tells him that someone dies in the city every 18 hours, but they could stop it. Harold explains that he has a list of people who will soon be involved in crimes. One of the names on the list is a woman named Hansen. The problem is, Harold doesn't know if the person on the list will be the victim or the criminal. Harold wants John to follow Hansen, figure out what's going to happen, and save whoever is in danger. But John thinks Harold is just some rich guy stalking his ex-girlfriend, so he walks away. Harold's men try to stop him, but John easily takes them down. Later, John checks into a hotel and changes his appearance by shaving. That night, Finch plays a recording of a murder that happened in the hotel room next to John's 3 years ago. Finch makes a comment about John being too late, hinting that John was also too late to save someone important to him, his girlfriend Jessica, who he loved and lost. This makes John angry, but he also realizes that Harold's job offer could help him save lives. John agrees to work with Harold. Harold takes him to his secret base of operations and shows him that the list isn't full of names, but social security numbers of people who might be involved in upcoming crimes. John starts investigating Hansen and narrows down 2 potential threats: a lawyer named Wheeler, who used to date Hansen, and a gangster named Pope, who was put in jail because of Hansen. John follows Hansen to Pope's trial, where a detective named Fusco gives a statement. After the trial, Hansen angrily confronts Fusco because he went off script without telling her. Hansen later visits Pope in prison and tells him she thinks he's innocent of the crime he's accused of. John listens in through a microphone planted on Hansen's phone and learns that Pope is lying to protect his younger brother, Michael, who witnessed the real murderers. Pope is taking the blame to keep Michael safe. The next day, Wheeler sneaks in Hansen's office and searches her computer, making John suspect he's involved in the crime. That night, the bad guys find Michael, but John intervenes. He uses a grenade launcher to stop their truck, saving Michael. During the fight, John discovers that the attackers are actually dirty cops. John keeps watching the bad guys and finds out they are working with Fusco, a dirty cop. The bad cops kill people to keep them quiet, while Fusco makes innocent people go to jail. John is curious about Harold's list, so Harold explains that after 9/11, the government hired him to build a machine that gathers information from cameras and microphones all over the country. The machine creates 2 lists, one for possible terrorist attacks and one for other crimes. John thinks Hansen is in danger, but soon finds out that she's working with the dirty cops. Hansen, in a tense meeting with the corrupt cops, confirms their involvement in Pope's murder last night. He orders them to eliminate Wheeler as well, warning that he's getting too close to the truth. Unbeknownst to them, John is eavesdropping nearby. Suddenly, Fusco sneaks up behind John and holding him at gunpoint, they knocks him out, and Fusco driving him out to the desert to finish him off. But John swiftly tosses a tear gas canister, causing the car to crash. John escapes and comes back to New York. The dirty cops are about to kill Wheeler and blame it on a thug, but John shows up just in time to stop them. He also tricks Hansen using some recordings and forces Fusco to work for him by blackmailing him, since John needs someone on the inside. A few days later, John is in an elevator with a man named Bill, who is holding flowers. John asks if the flowers are for Bill's wife, but he already knows the answer. John explains that sometimes women leave their husbands when they find out they cheated, but other times they hire hitmen to make it look like a robbery. John stops two men who were following Bill and tells him to hire a good divorce lawyer. The next day, the machine gives Harold and John a new number. This time, the number belongs to a girl named Teresa, but her case is strange. Harold takes John to a cemetery and says Teresa is supposed to be dead. Her father went crazy after losing all his money and killed his family before taking his own life. Harold explains that the machine sees everything, so if Teresa's number came up, it means she's still alive. John visits Fusco and makes him give up the case file. After reading it, John tells Harold that the murder was done by a professional, and it was made to look like the father did it. Harold asks how John knows, and John replies, "Because that's how I would have done it." Finch uses his technology to find the girl Teresa, and John goes after her. Teresa realizes someone is following her, so she escapes before John can catch her. John visits Harold at an office where he works. It turns out Harold owns the company but works there to stay hidden. John gives Harold a small device Teresa left behind. This device steals people's credit card information when they use ATMs. Teresa has been making money by stealing from people's bank accounts. John asks around and finds out that a hitman named Solnick was hired to kill Teresa's family. Solnick is now in jail, so John visits him. Solnick says he never kills kids, so he let Teresa go, but warned her not to tell anyone or he'd come back for her. John asks who hired him, but Solnick doesn't know the man's name, as he was paid in cash and they never exchanged names. Meanwhile, Teresa tries to sell bank information online, and Finch tracks her location. John finds Teresa, but an assassin shows up to kill her. John saves Teresa and takes her to a hotel. Teresa then reveals that her father blamed her uncle Derek for ruining his life. John tracks down Derek and learns that he worked with two big contractors to kill Teresa's dad. They wanted the land her father owned, which was now worth a lot more money. Now they want to kill Teresa so she can't inherit the land. John finds one of the contractors and crashes a big truck into his car. He asks the contractor to stop the hit on Teresa, but the man says it's already in progress. At the hotel, the assassin is trying to find Teresa, while Harold tries to help her escape. The assassin catches up with them and points a gun at them, but John arrives just in time and stops the assassin by killing him. The next day, John calls Agent Carter and tells her it's time for them to meet. Carter arrives with some secret officers, but she only finds Teresa. Carter takes Teresa to the police station to reunite her with her aunt. She tries to get information from Teresa, but the girl says her experience was so painful that she can't remember much about the man who helped her. Later, John visits Harold at his office, but Harold has moved to a new location. When John calls, Harold reminds him that he's very private and doesn't want calls. He says he'll contact John when it's necessary. Soon, the machine gives them a new number. This time, it's a soldier named Joey. Joey is a brave military man with medals, and John starts watching him. Joey works as a groom at a hotel, but one day, he sends a strange message and leaves work. John follows him and sees Joey join a group of robbers at a bank. Joey is wearing a mask while his partners rob the bank, and John can't do anything as he's pinned to the ground. When the security guard tries to grab his gun, John stops him because it's not safe. Afterward, Harold wants to turn Joey in before someone gets hurt, but John wants to know why a good soldier like Joey is robbing banks. He follows Joey and discovers that he's part of a group of former soldiers who commit robberies. John meets a man named Sam, who is a former sergeant and runs a bar. John pretends to be looking for a job and claims that a friend suggested Sam to him. A few days later, Finch arranges for the team's driver to be arrested, which allows John to join Joey's team as their new driver. John has his first meeting with Joey and the crew. Meanwhile, Carter watches the footage from the bank robbery and notices John saving the security guard by stopping him from grabbing his gun. John tells Harold that Joey doesn't seem like someone who would kill innocent people. It's different to kill during war than to kill in a robbery. John gets closer to Joey by pretending to meet him randomly and asking about their next job. Joey says that it depends on Sam, who gives the orders. They bond a bit after getting into a fight with two bankers. Reese begins asking Joey if he has any kids, knowing Joey is involved with two different women. Joey stays private, only saying he has obligations to handle. A few days later, the gang calls Reese for a mission, and meanwhile, the police identify one of the gang members. The team robs an underground gambling den tied to the mafia, escaping just before the police arrive. Sam plans another heist, and Harold feels it's time to stop them. But Reese asks for more time. He wants to protect Joey. Reese learns that Joey's girlfriend is one of the women, while the other is the wife of his war buddy. Joey's mission is to support his buddy's daughter financially, making sure she has a good life. John joins the gang for their next mission, where they're tasked with stealing evidence related to someone named Elias. Finch discovers that Sam is setting the team up and warns Reese. When the group hands over the case files, Sam kills the others, but Reese saves Joey, advising him to leave town. Later, Reese finds Sam already dead after delivering the files to an unknown figure. Amid the chaos, Harold visits a doctor, mainly to steal Dr. Tillman's hospital radio after receiving her number from the machine. John starts observing her and notices she lives a lonely, work-driven life. One evening, she goes out, and a man flirts with her. He tries to follow, but Reese intervenes. Back inside the club, Reese spots Andrew, a man who bumped into Tillman earlier. Reese bumps into him, finding drugs on him. From the bartender, he learns Tillman comes to the club alone every night. John suspects she has attracted Andrew's attention. The next day, Reese breaks into Andrew's apartment, stealing his computer files. He and Harold find that Andrew is a predator with a history of exploiting women. His criminal record has been wiped clean. Meanwhile, Carter reviews footage of the robbery and notices a brief exchange between Harold and one of the thieves. That night, John watches as Andrew approaches Tillman in the bar. Andrew and Dr. Tillman share a brief flirtatious moment at the bar before parting ways. Andrew invites Tillman to his place, but she declines, only to secretly follow him, using a camera to track his movements. John realizes it's not Andrew stalking Tillman, but the other way around, and calls Finch with the update. John then digs into Andrew's past with the help of Fusco, uncovering that in college, Andrew was accused of sexually assaulting a young woman. The case was dropped because the victim, Tillman's sister, was 2 days late in reporting the incident. Tragically, Tillman's sister later took her own life. The machine flagged Tillman because she's planning to kill Andrew in revenge. Meanwhile, Carter visits Harold, questioning him about the robbery, but he covers up the truth. John continues his investigation and finds out that Tillman has purchased enough chemicals to dissolve Andrew's body. To prevent her plan, John stages a drug-related accident using Andrew's car, leading to his arrest. However, Andrew is quickly released. That night, Tillman tases Andrew, drugs him, and loads him into a wheelchair, planning to kill him. But John intervenes and urges her not to go through with it, telling her that killing Andrew would destroy who she truly is, a healer, not a murderer. After a tense conversation, Tillman relents. John then takes Andrew to a remote location, where he reflects on whether people can truly change. He debates with himself whether to let Andrew live or kill him, as Andrew has hurt so many lives. The episode ends ambiguously, with John asking Andrew to help him decide before the screen cuts to black. A few days later, the machine gives Finch a new number belonging to Samuel Gates, a respected Supreme Court judge known for being tough on crime, has made many enemies. John follows him and notices some suspicious men trailing the judge. When one of them tosses a phone into a dumpster, John retrieves it and reads a message about Samuel's son finishing school, realizing that the real target is the judge's son. At that moment, Samuel's son is kidnapped. John tries to intervene but gets shot, allowing the kidnappers to escape with the boy. The judge receives a call from the kidnappers, who warn him not to involve the police. Devastated, Samuel is approached by John, who offers help and reassures him that the kidnappers will keep his son alive as long as they need him. They return to the judge's house, where Samuel wonders how the kidnappers bypassed his security. John discovers the nanny has been murdered, likely forced to give up the alarm code. While Finch tries to trace the kidnappers' calls, John tracks down one of the kidnappers, discovering he's part of the SP9 gang, a powerful Eastern European criminal organization. The kidnappers call Samuel again, but they don't want money. They demand that he dismiss the case of Angela, a woman on trial for a hit and run. If he does, they'll return his son. Samuel, under immense pressure, helps Angela's case but delays his ruling as much as possible, trying to buy time. Meanwhile, John interrogates a captured gang member, learning the location where the kidnappers collect their payments. He goes there, takes down 2 guards, and finds $500,000, realizing just how big this operation is. Finch uncovers Angela's role in the SP9 gang's money laundering operation. Angela, who works at a bank, is secretly aiding the gang by temporarily turning off anti-money laundering software, allowing their transactions to go unnoticed. The gang uses online payment methods to fund operations, including paying for legal defense. The next day, Finch infiltrates the bank and extracts crucial data from their servers. Meanwhile, John searches for Samuel's son but comes up empty-handed. Under pressure and with no news of his son, Judge Samuel is forced to exonerate Angela in court. Shortly after, the gang boss calls Samuel instructing him to come pick up his son. But John realizes it's a trap. They plan to kill the judge. He forces Angela to get into the car and drive to the location. At the location, Samuel is told to say goodbye to his son, but John arrives with Angela, revealing her role in the operation. Angela has been disabling the bank's algorithm for 3 minutes each morning to help the gang launder their money. Realizing the operation is compromised, the gang boss orders his men to kill everyone. A shootout ensues, with the gangsters losing. Finch later provides evidence to send Angela to prison, and the police find her tied up with the gang members. John's next task involves connecting with Zoe Morgan, the next person of interest flagged by the machine. John poses as Zoe's driver to get close to her. Suspicious, Zoe calls to verify her new driver, but Finch covers for John. He drives her to meet a man where she retrieves a gun. Later, Finch finds another gun at her apartment, leading John to deduce that she's using the second gun because it's untraceable. At a social event, Zoe meets a high-ranking officer returning his lost gun, revealing her role in discreetly solving problems for powerful individuals. Afterward, Zoe tells John to meet her again tomorrow, hinting at more involvement in her mysterious dealings. Finch asks John for his thoughts on Zoe's situation, and John explains that Zoe is a fixer who solves problems for money, making her a target for many dangerous people. Meanwhile, the police discover the body of a man who was once the main suspect in an old case involving a woman named Marlene Elias. This case file had been stolen in earlier episodes. Carter speaks with the detective who originally worked the case, uncovering new details. Marlene Elias was a waitress at a cocktail bar owned by a mafia boss with whom she had an affair. When Marlene pressured him to leave his wife, the mafia don hired the now-dead man to kill her. The killer walked free after the don manipulated the case. Marlene had a son with the mafia boss, and it's suspected that her son is the one who ordered the theft of the case file and murdered the man responsible for his mother's death. At the same time, Zoe runs into trouble with Mark Lawson, an heir to a major pharmaceutical company. Zoe had previously retrieved a recording of Mark's illegal affair, but after he killed the reporter with the recording, Mark now wants to eliminate Zoe to tie up loose ends. John steps in and saves her, while Finch poses as a major shareholder in the pharmaceutical company to confront Mark. Finch's investigation uncovers more. Mark not only had an affair, but also killed the woman because she was about to expose a massive scandal involving one of the company's drugs. This drug had a 3% mortality rate, but the company paid off authorities to keep it quiet and push it through for approval. John and Zoe break into the pharmaceutical headquarters, recovering deleted files from the company's servers. Finch pieces together the full story. The company tested the drug on people, all of whom are now dead. Unfortunately, John and Zoe are caught, and Mark prepares to kill them. However, Zoe claims to have mailed a copy of the damning report to a trusted individual. Mark negotiates with her, and she agrees to lead him to the person with the report if he promises to let her live. Before they leave, Zoe slips a paperclip into John's hand, allowing him to cut himself free. John then takes down the guard, finds Zoe, and rescues her. With the evidence made public, the pharmaceutical company is finally held accountable for its crimes. The next day, John, Reese, and Harold Finch receive the social security number of Charlie Burton, a mild-mannered schoolteacher living in a rough neighborhood. The machine identifies him as a person of interest, but it's unclear whether he's a victim or a perpetrator. Reese begins surveillance and notices something unusual when Charlie witnesses a mob hit orchestrated by Elias, a dangerous crime boss. Realizing that Charlie's life is in immediate danger, Reese steps in just as the mob henchmen close in. He takes down the attackers and drags Charlie to safety, knowing Elias won't stop hunting him. Reese decides to get Charlie out of the neighborhood, and they race through the streets of New York, dodging bullets and staying ahead of their pursuers. Reese's tactical skills shine as he handles the dangerous situation. Meanwhile, Detective Carter works on connecting the dots regarding the mob activity, but remains unaware of how powerful and dangerous Elias is. During their escape, Reese and Charlie bond. Charlie appears to be an overwhelmed, humble teacher, while Reese shows his softer side, trying to comfort him. However, Finch begins to suspect that Charlie is hiding something, as details about his background don't add up. Charlie eventually reveals the truth. He's not just a school teacher, he is actually Elias himself, the very mob boss they've been hunting. Charlie Burton is an alias he's been using to stay off the radar while eliminating his rivals. Reese, who's been protecting him, is shocked by the revelation. Before Reese can act on this new information, Elias' men storm the building and kill his enemy. Reese reflects on being deceived and the moral gray areas of his work. Finch reminds him that not everything is clear-cut, and sometimes good and evil are difficult to distinguish. Elias remains at large, and Reese and Finch know this encounter marks the beginning of a larger conflict as Elias continues to grow in power. The episode ends with tension high, setting up future confrontations with the elusive crime boss.